Before we get started, I have two disclaimers that I need to make. First of all, I will only be talking about the base game. I will not be talking about the River or Abbot expansions. Those will be covered in a separate review along with another expansion. Second of all, I am aware that there is a controversy going on with the publisher of the game that we will be talking about. I am not going to talk about that controversy because I want to remain neutral on the matter because I don't know enough about the subject. This review is going to be only dedicated to the game we will be talking about on its own. So with all that said, on to the video. Carcassonne was designed by Klaus-Jürgen Wrede and published by Hans-Im-Gluck as an area control tile placement game where players step into the shoes of the settlers of southern France, attempting to shape the medieval landscape by placing tiles and meeples in special roles in order to claim the construction sites of cities, monasteries, roads, and farms, all of which are required in order to score enough points in order to win. Carcassonne is considered by many to be a modern classic, along with games like Catan, Ticket to Ride, and Alhambra. Like many things that are considered classics, it will eventually receive the question, has this aged well? Some things age like great cheese, others like mayonnaise left in the sun. So, here's the question. Which way do I think Carcassonne has aged? Let's find out. I found the gameplay for the most part to have aged fairly well, with one exception. That exception is the drawing of the tile, which can be very frustrating. When it comes to drawing the tile, it is a complete luck fest for what type of tile you're going to get. When it's your turn, you draw the top tile from the stack, and then you play it. What you draw is what you get, and there is no way to mitigate it. That means that through the luck of the draw, how you can score throughout the game can completely depend on what you draw from the stack. For context, there are 4 ways of scoring: the roads, the cities, the monasteries, and the fields. Each has their own way of scoring. Roads score when both sides of the road have a complete connection to a city, a monastery, a village, or when it loops back on itself. Cities score when the walls of the cities are completely built up around it. The monastery scores when it's surrounded by 8 tiles. When the roads or monastery score, you earn 1 point for each tile that's involved in its completion. When a city scores, you get 2 points per tile involved in its completion. The field only scores at the end of the game, and it scores 3 points for each complete city that the field is connected to. So on the surface, that makes it seem like there would be multiple options to play through the game to score points. And you'd be right. That is the case, or at least that would be the case if you had good luck on the draw. But sometimes the luck of the draw won't favor you and can get you into situations where most of what you are drawing isn't what you want. This in turn can limit your opportunities to play your meeples and score points. For example, I've had multiple games where most of the tiles that I've drawn were just roads. No roads with a city, no roads with a connection, just roads. Can you see where the frustration lies? Potentially drawing just one type of tile over and over again can not only really limit the game's ability to let you score, but also leaves the game feeling very boring because you're just doing the same thing over and over. So while I find the luck of the draw to be a drawback from a gameplay perspective, from another perspective, the luck factor on the luck of the draw is actually a massive positive that I'll get into when we talk about the replay value. But for those who are looking for a strategy area control game, this could be a make or break for you. So keep that in mind. But when it comes to the negatives I have, that's really where they end. There's a lot that I still really like about how the game plays. For starters, you may not always get the tile you want, thanks to the luck of the draw, but you always have control over how you've placed what you've gotten. For example, let's say you have a plain road curve with no connections, no separate portion of a city, just a plain road curve. So while it is just a plain road, there's still quite a bit you can do with it. You can start a road that will score for you, you can extend an unoccupied road and claim it for yourself, or you can add it to a road that you've already claimed. You can try to place it next to an opponent's road and then place one of your meeples on it to try and connect your road to your opponent's road on a future turn so that you can leech off of their work, or even take it over so that it scores for you instead. Or you could place it in a more defensive role and place it deliberately next to one of your opponent's tiles to try to make it harder for them to complete something that they were working on so that they don't score. And that applies to the cities and fields. You can start one, claim one that's not already been claimed, extend one you already have, try to leech off someone else, take theirs over with the right placement, or try to sabotage your opponent's efforts. In the rare chance that you draw a tile that you can't legally place anywhere, that tile will just be discarded, so in the end, you will always have a tile that can help you. I also like the game's form of area control as a whole. The fact that there is 4 ways to control the board and score is really nice. Not only that, but it also helps the way that each roll is scored is different, because it helps avoid the game developing the feeling of being repetitive, doing the same thing over and over again. Having 4 ways to score creates options on how you can play through it that you can change as the game goes by and from game to game. I also love the fact that there is a risk every single time you place someone on the board. There is always a risk when you assign a role that you will place someone on the board and never get them back. So if you're not careful, you can get into situations where you could have had a golden scoring opportunity but had nothing to place, forcing you to miss out on that opportunity. I love that, because it forces you to ask that question: is it worth placing my person on this spot? Am I going to be able to finish this and get it back? Should I place one of these at all? Should I wait to see if maybe there's a better one to try and go for and score? Should I place one of my people here to try and take over this other person's stuff? Or should I just leave it alone and try to build my own thing? That is easily my favorite part of playing through it. I always find myself enjoying the feeling of questioning if the potential payoff is worth risking losing one of my people completely. I also like that every tile can be played both offensively and defensively, especially with the tiles that you don't want. If you draw a tile and you think that you can't find a good use for it, you always have the option of placing it to try and sabotage another player's work so that they can't score a feature and they lose a person for the rest of the game, further limiting their opportunities to try and score. It gives every tile in the game an extra purpose if you don't think that it can work for you. I also found that the game scales very well. I have played this with all of the player counts, and I have yet to find a count that either made the game feel unfair to one player or went on for too long. And I think that when everybody knows what they're doing, the game plays through very fast. The box says 35 minutes, and I think that's pretty accurate. There is a chance you might go over that with 5 players, but not by much. In my experience, when everyone knows how to play, the longest I have had a game go on for is 45 minutes at the most. Overall, I found the gameplay to have aged fairly well. The luck of the draw can be frustrating, and if you don't like the idea that your turn can depend on the flip of a tile, you're not going to like this game, and I completely understand that. However, I like that you have control over what you get. I still like the game's form of area control. I love that risk of placing someone on the board and potentially never getting them back. I like that you can play offensively and defensively with the tiles, and I think the game scales very well and plays very fast. So overall, I still think that the gameplay is fairly solid. When it comes to how much replay value the game has, there's definitely a good amount, which is impressive considering that this game is just a bunch of tiles and meeples. But I wonder if there could have been more. At the base value, the main thing holding the replay value back for me is the fact that you will always see all the tiles used by the end of the game. Now, it's not the worst thing in the world, but it is a shame to know that eventually you will see everything, because it removes a lot of that feeling of, what are we going to see next time? One of the key aspects to me of a game having great replay value is the fact that not everything is going to be seen by the end of the game when you play it for the first time. It motivates you to come back and play it over and over because you want to see everything that's involved with it and discover all the combinations for what you can do with it. With Carcassonne, that curiosity is mostly gone after the first playthrough. because all of the tiles in the game are used. So from that point alone, there wouldn't be much motivation to play it again because you've already seen everything. And the thing is, all it would take is one change and that wouldn't be an issue. If there was a rule during setup that you had to randomly remove a set number of tiles before the game depending on the number of players, that would greatly improve the replay value. It would motivate you to play it more than once because you didn't see everything after the first playthrough. Keep in mind, what I just said is merely a suggestion. I'm obviously not a game designer, so take what I just said there with a spoon of salt. However, despite the fact that you will see everything, there's still a fair amount of replay value in what we have. This is where the luck of the draw that I complained about during the gameplay works for this game in a positive light. Since you're randomly drawing tiles to place them on the board, you will be experiencing the game differently every time you play, as the tiles will show themselves in a different order every time. For a hypothetical example, you could have one game where you have long highways that are 10 tiles long with 2 massive cities that are 8 tiles big, 3 smaller cities that are 5 tiles big, and have every monastery sitting next to each other. Another game could have 3 cities that are 5 tiles big with a whole bunch of small cities surrounding them, which would be a gold mine for the farmers, with roads no bigger than 4 tiles long, and the monasteries are spread throughout the board. The randomness of the draw is keeping the game somewhat fresh because it will cause the game to play out differently every time, which will give you a more unique experience. So overall, in terms of the replay value, while I did think that there was more that could have been added to it, I still think what we have here is solid. When it comes to how easy the game is to learn how to play, this game is incredibly simple to learn. The player's turns are very simple. On your turn, you will draw the top tile from the stack, place it on the board, and then you have the option of whether or not you want to place a meeple as one of the following roles: a knight in a city, a farmer in a field, a monk in a monastery, or a highwayman / robber / thief on the road. Knights, monks, and robbers, when their criteria is fulfilled, are scored, and the players get their meeple back to place on a later turn, while the farmers will only score at the end of the game. The rulebook for the game, while only 6 pages long, is formatted so well that it makes it one of the best rulebooks I've ever read. The idea of having the setup and sections of the gameplay divided into colored boxes to explain each part was a genius decision. I know it may seem simple, lines in a box instead of throughout the page, who cares? Well, the reason why I like that is by keeping things separate, it visually looks less intimidating and allows you to search by simply finding the needed box instead of reading lines and lines of text to try to find the information you need. This is especially helpful when explaining the different roles. Each role is divided into its own section, and each section is further divided into 3 boxes with their own color to explain each role. Green is playing the tile for the role, blue is placing the meeple for the role, and red is scoring the feature. It makes it easy to find the section you need if you have a question about a particular part of the role. This isn't used for every section in the rulebook though. The explanation for having multiple meeples on the same feature, as well as the endgame and final scoring, all have their own sections. However, I don't have a problem with this because since these sections only have one thing to be explained, the colored boxes wouldn't be necessary, so no complaints or questions from me. Speaking of questions, I have yet to have a single question that the rulebook couldn't answer. In fact, I have yet to have a question about the rules at all. That is how well this rulebook is written. If I had to critique anything about how easy this game is to play or anything about the rulebook, it would be that I find it confusing that the rules for the farmers had to be written on a completely separate page, along with the rules for the 2 mini expansions, which again, I will not be talking about here. Overall, in terms of the ease of play, this game is incredibly simple with a fantastic rulebook that I don't think should cause any problems. When it comes to the aesthetics, for the most part, they're fine, but nothing special. The biggest thing I have to complain about is the fact that the meeples are not the most colorblind friendly. Apart from the color, there is no way to tell the meeples apart. so if you are colorblind, you will likely have a difficult time telling which ones are yours. Other than that, I'd say the aesthetics are alright, but nothing to write home about. The tiles, while super boring looking, are designed fairly well. The features are very easy to tell apart. You can easily tell what is meant to be part of a city, what is meant to be a road, what is meant to be a monastery, and what is the villages where the roads are supposed to split or end. I also like that they added little details onto the green fields of many of the tiles. While they don't contribute anything gameplay-wise in the base game, I do like that they included them because it changes the background of the tiles a little bit, making them just a tiny bit more than just plain green fields. It adds just a little bit more life to how the game looks. The scoreboard is designed very well. Again, it's nothing special, it's just a mimicry of the main board tiles, but it has a nice little design, and I do think that the numbers that they have to represent the scores are laid out very well and stand out very well from the background, so I don't think there should be any confusion on where the score should be. So overall, when it comes to the aesthetics, other than the fact that the meeples are hard to tell apart, I would say that the aesthetics are fine. When it comes to the thematic ties, I'm just gonna come out and say it, the ties to the theme are a complete joke. At no point in any of my playthroughs did it ever feel like we were building the landscape of medieval southern France. The only match between the mechanics to the theme that I could find is the fact that the monasteries sit by themselves in the middle of nowhere or are connected to civilization only by a road. That's it. The robbers don't feel like robbers. The knights don't feel like knights. None of the 4 roles that you give to the meeples feel like they're in that role when you place them on the board. To cap it all off, you know the theme is pasted on when you're able to make 14 spin-off versions, each with a different theme, despite all having the same base mechanic. So yeah, when it comes to the theme, it's as pasted on as you can get. Overall, I would say that Carcassonne has aged fairly well over the years. The gameplay, while a little random for what it is, still provides enough enjoyment that I think families or casual gamers will enjoy, but I also think it has enough decisions to make that strategy gamers will still get a little enjoyment out of it as a quick, light area control game that doesn't take very long. It has enough replay value that you can come back and play from time to time and get different results. It's a very easy game to learn how to play with a very good rulebook. The aesthetics are fine for the most part, except for the meeples, and it has one of the most obvious pasted on themes that I've ever seen. All of this comes together into an experience that I will play from time to time, whether it's as a quick game because we don't have a lot of time, or as more of a casual game because I don't want to think too much, or as a quick light game that we can play between 2 big games on a game day. And if you're a fan of area control games and you want a light, simple one to add to your collection, or if you want a simple one to play with families or casual gamers, or if you just want a lighter game in general, this is one I would recommend. Just be careful where you get it from. I'm going to give Carcassonne a 7 out of 10. So those are all my thoughts on Carcassonne, and with all that said, I want to know, what are your thoughts on it? Let me know in the comments below. I hope you all enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a big thumbs up. If you want to know my thoughts on other games, or if you want more videos, make sure you subscribe to the channel for more tutorials, reviews, and unboxings. Thank you all as always so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.